because what they have been trying to do is eluding them because they don't know the equation to achieve things like truth, love, harmony, peace, and all those things. They don't come automatically. You have to work those things. What you say, Tosh?
As far as the trust, I feel like that was lost on us a long time ago, due to so-called, unquote, leadership, fake leadership, supposed to be leadership. I think people need to start thinking for themselves. We don't do enough of that. We don't question enough. We don't, matter of fact, question everything. Everybody should be vetted. Everything should be vetted. Prime example, we finna be coming up into an election soon. Why we still voting? What we still voting for? What we getting for our vote? And the people that keep telling you to vote give you the same spiel over and over again.
Yeah, that's right.
And you getting the same results. So if you don't vote, what harm is it gonna do? What you gonna end up with? That you ain't already learned how to operate and weave through and hustle through and get through.
That's right. Absolutely.
I'm gonna bounce back to you off that.
She said she's gonna bounce it back to you off that.
Yeah, but see, you're absolutely correct. I mean, we did a show about 4 weeks ago, and it was based upon living in your head. And because most people live in their head, they live in what they think they want the world to look like, what they want the world to be, but they're not dealing with the reality of the world and the activity of those who are actually controlling it. So, like she said, they don't question, but they don't know the question. Because the leadership's been so poor that all they've been doing is gathering information in your life and in your relationships or business into revenue streams. And you look at all of these leaders, they never put all the people together. You understand? This denomination stays over here, this group stays over here. But it's incumbent, it was supposed to be incumbent upon the leadership to bring the people together. But if they're keeping the people apart, what does it say about them? Because everybody's suffering from the same ills, suffering from the same ignorance and madness. And the thing is that it's most people on the planet. It's just only black people.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I know you're out there listening. They just turned off. They didn't turn it off. They turned it off and it just came back on. But I know you're out there listening to it. After I said trust, why did the stream just turn off for a little bit? I know you're out there listening to me and I got something to say to you. I don't care. The truth is getting out there. Black people need to trust each other. That's the only way we're going to unify. And if you think you're going to stop my agenda, that's done. It's dead. We back on air. What is he talking about?
I'm going to stay on top of it, Mayor.
Yeah.
So, we're going to go to our,
Fine, real in the night.
yeah, we're trying to make sure we give you a little bit of that every show.
We don't do enough of that. We don't question enough. We don't get the same results. So if you don't vote, what harm is
You
it gonna do?
understand, like what Sister Tasha was saying, it don't make no difference whether you vote or not. You understand? Because it ain't an even playing field. And we didn't give you enough information to understand that we live in a system. It ain't called democracy. It ain't called capitalism. But they use all of those terminologies, and those are aspects inside of the social system. But the social system is actually just war. It's war. And when you understand that it's war, then that'll help you understand. You won't be surprised at all the things that are taking place because somebody been warring against you for 40, 60 years. You ain't been participating. You've just been the victim of war perpetuated on you at every step. That's why when we talked about the Fourth Amendment on the last show, it was important for y'all to get that because we're going to keep hopping on that because the Fourth Amendment is the amendment where they deal with all police business matters. Everything.
So it's been sanctioned for you to be murdered.
And inculcated in the Fourth Amendment is the police's right to provoke you, and when you respond in any shape, form, or fashion, even the slightest negativity, that's their justification for killing you.
So if she went in her purse to get a wallet before they asked for a license, they allowed to shoot. That's a frivolous move.
Yeah,
I just want her to
They
know it
should-
in here.
Because the onus is on them. They the
Yeah.
ones who define what the behavior is like
Right,
from the individual.
right. They feel threatened because she went in her purse, no matter how much of a woman she is.
But they know they wasn't threatened. That's the point.
Yeah.
They
I'm
know
saying they can
most of the
use-
time when they talk to people, they're not threatened. What they have to do is create the environment of threat by saying something to you or doing something to you that makes you buck on them. And as soon as you buck on them, game over.
Did you watch Cornbread, Maxwell Cornbread Line? The little boy and the guy running down the street with the orange pop in his hand and they shot him in New York.
Well, I think so.
That's a part of the Fourth Amendment. He running down the street and the light shine on the bottle and it looked like a weapon. And the police killed the top player, the basketball player from the NBA.
And that's how slight it is. It can be that slight.
He had an orange pop. The light hit the bottle. The cops seen the shiny object and blew him down.
You can look at your life.
But the point I got it,
Yeah, no, I'm saying that's it. Yeah, Trayvon with a bag of Skittles and iced tea. We stopped by in Arizona iced tea for what, a week, a day.
what was the
Some
guy?
little Negroes went back to nine. He
What?
had Skittles and
Some type of soda or something. Yeah.
the tea,
No, that's what it was. It was the Arizona.
Arizona tea.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I know
Skittles.
it was some type of drink. Yeah.
And the security guy shot him down. He wasn't even police. But the Fourth Amendment protected him because his father was what, a judge or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah. So, well, I remember one of the most flagrant ones was when the guy was walking down the street and he had a knife in his hand. Wasn't nobody even near him. The police was just looking at him. What was Laquan McDonald.
Yeah.
And he was really just walking down the street with the knife in his hand.
Right. But somebody had dropped him off over there from the west side. A squad coming. That's why it went to hell and went to peace.
Oh, so they knew he was challenged.
Yeah.
And they knew if they let him on the street, they probably put the word out there. And hey, he's killable.
Yeah.
Ain't that what they say in the Anthropocene? Making
Yeah.
things
Kill him.
killable.
Yeah. They drove up. This cop shot him what? 16 times.
Yeah, well,
16
I mean,
shots in a cover.
it
They
may-
think it's a joke.
made no sense at all. But when you understand the latitude that police had,
Yeah.
and that's why they always like you have the guy that killed Floyd. He petitioned the judge to commute his sentence.
Derek Chauvin and they did ran in concurrent, and you've never heard of a state and a federal sentence being ran concurrent in history. Never for us, most certainly. And I guess it's a new day, new laws when it comes down to it for the
That's what
police.
happened?
Yeah, they ran his sentence concurrent. They ran his state sentence, which he's serving right now, with his federal
With his
time
feds,
that he
yeah.
would have got, so he can serve it all at the same time. So when he's done with the state, that's it. He won't have to serve it all the time. And I've never seen that happen. Same thing that just happened with Amar Arbery. That's what his mom and I was fighting for them not to run his sentence concurrent. You murdered that boy in cold blood. Then got it videotaped and he's brought to life. But you want to get them concurrent sentences. The regular citizen, let alone black people, can't get a concurrent anything.
Right.
So why was that? And they weren't even police officers. They was ex-police officers, but they street vigilantes with the police.
Slam.
Read from there and go to our favorite case because this speaks to what you're talking about, Tasha. You know, speak from there.
Right here?
Yeah, and then go to the next page.
Okay.
No, the second page.
No, when you said
just like
no,
reading that.
no, I was just saying when you
No,
said no, I want to read this because he said
Go ahead.
that we can't trust the politicians.
Go ahead.
And the Negro has less schooling, worse health, more infant mortality, double or triple the unemployment rate of the whites.
Hmm.
Who
The
don't know
poli-
that?
no, I'm saying, but you saying about the untrust with the politicians and the leaders. This is what they run off of.
We
That's
keep
it.
getting this right. We keep getting the same thing. I'm gonna do something about the schools. I'm gonna make sure the housing
Yeah,
gets better.
just be
They've
loud.
been selling you this for the longest, and you still ain't got none of that. It's gotten worse, if anything.
I just wanted to make it prevalent to our listeners because some of them might not know what we know of or forgot it.
So let me
we
tell
just
you,
bring it
let,
up.
let me tell you how simple that is. It's such a simple equation. Because it happens over and over and over again. Okay, so guy comes to you and say, hey, I want you to be in my campaign, I want you to elect me, and I'm gonna do all of this stuff that all of them say, right?
Mhm.
He knows something you don't know. And what that is that he'll take your money to get elected. But once he gets elected, you don't pay his check.
Right.
So he don't have to even pay attention to after.
That lie he told?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He ain't even got to deal with you no more.
You're right.
Cause all of those laws that are jacking up our people
Yeah.
are made by the people that they put in the office.
Oh, that's a little more something. The blacks of today are not likely to be deeply moved by this passage, my perfect statement, except to be soured
Soured.
by the thought that Jefferson went on living out his life in Monticello with his own slaves, who were benevolently treated.
What does benevolently mean, Mayor?
To be benevolent means to be good, kind, humane.
Two, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's what Jefferson meant by treating. Okay.
Which is really oxymoron.
Mm-hmm.
I treated my slave
Benevolent.
benevolently.
Be a benevolent person to be our slave.
And attended to his wants without a visible rancor or hate. That means he didn't make no faces. Yes, about Motisa? Yeah. Okay. No white man can deride this bitter reaction, for it keeps forcing us to think of what we have suppressed for centuries, the most continuous, shameful contradiction of the American heritage. But it also has to be said that all men of all sorts...
See, that's a misleading statement, too.
Which one?
Because they would lead you to believe that this thing just showed up. But this has been 400 some years of this. Institutional racism is what it is. It's institutional. That means it's everywhere. There's nowhere that racism is not.
Right.
In every form of life and every way of life. And there is no reforming their system.
It can't do.
It's working just the way it was designed to.
So all these people
Yeah,
talking
I was
about,
about that.
especially black people, they talking about changing the system. It ain't your damn system. And certainly white people ain't gonna fix what ain't broke. Go ahead.
But it also has to be said that all men of all sorts, we don't always say their own time. That's what Tasha always telling me, I'm going to my own time, Dean. It's okay. But not many whites suffered Jefferson's torments, which must have often been quickened by the memory of a slave killed by his nephew. Few philosophers of the Enlightenment shredded and the hanging of a boy for a petty theft. What is still, Tasha, a peppermint stick? The most humane Greeks in their
Okay, but you gotta connect that now. The hanging of this person, right?
This boy.
It ain't no difference if they hang, shoot, tie you up, drag you behind a car.
They trying to
Stab
make this
in your
distinction.
eye.
Yeah.
That is the point. That in this world, they can do this to black boys. And they do, as a matter of policy, once you understand the Fourth Amendment. It's their right. When they had the case, Plessy versus Ferguson, it was about a runaway slave who got caught by the KKK and brought back to the plantation. So the guy thought that he was doing something because he was a little intelligent. He wanted to take it to court. And when they took it to court, the finding by the judge was that a black man had no rights that a white man had to respect. That was in the court. That was the
Do they
judge's
understand?
summation.
Did you hear that? How petty, now this young man was hung for a petty theft, Dean. How petty was it for Trayvon to have some Skittles and an Arizona tea in his hand? How petty was it for, what's the guy you said got shot 16 times? Laquan McDonald. How petty was him to have a knife that Prince talking about and because it was shiny, huh? And you drive up and shoot him 16 times without asking them to put the knife down or anything.
First off, again, those guns were shoot 16 rounds.
But it rebounds from what I was saying to you, Dean, about Cornbread and I. Cornbread Maxwell was running down the street in New York with an orange pop in his hand, away from somewhere where some crime might have been, and they blew his brains out. Now, how petty was that with him just having a pop in his hand? Let me go on from there, Dean. The most humane Greeks in their golden age never doubted that mankind existed in two natural orders. A lower order that labored so that the higher may think high, fine thoughts of them.
So you can guess who was the lower and who was the higher.
Today, the word slave calls up the image of a black man or woman sold in Africa by black men to British or American shippers and put up on an auction block, Black Wall Street, at some port in the West Indies. It was Black Wall Street in the daytime and an auction block at night, in case we get you right. West Indies of the American South, and then delivered for a life to a planter, a lifetime thing on the farm. But the slaves were not always Negroes. In the beginning, the laboring whites and blacks under contract, that's why contract is so important, Dean, right today, were lumped together under one word, servant.
Let me add some historical perspective to that, because that just didn't happen out of a vacuum. What happened is there was an insurrection, a riot on a farm. It was called the Bacon's Rebellion. It was in 15th, 16th century.
Bacon's Rebellion?
Bacon's Rebellion.
Okay.
And what happened, that description of the servant, all of them people who were working on the plantation were whites, they were blacks, Indians, and
Mixed
others.
together?
All mixed together, but they all were on the same level.
Servants.
This is before the term white man was coined. After this insurrection by called Bacon's Rebellion, it was after that the concept of the white man, the word white man, the compound word, was formed. People wasn't using the term white man before that. But what happened in Bacon's Rebellion, the aristocracy, the British aristocracy, was looking at all of their properties and their farms and plantations across the country, and they said, "Oh, well, we can't afford for this to happen to any other farm or any other plantation." They said, "We got to figure out a way around this," and this is what they did. All of the white boys that worked on the plantation, they called them in. And they had discussions with them and saying they were changing the modus operandi of the plantation. No longer would the white man be equal to the other people, the blacks, the Indians, and all of that. And,
I read somewhere about that recently, or I saw it somewhere, but basically they took the term white and gave them a higher value than the black man, and that's how they was able to divide them. And as long as they got a little, just even 10% better treatment than they did them, they felt like they had the upper hand, they was in a better position. Absolutely.
and it never came down from it. Matter of fact, kept growing until you got somebody who was in that ilk. Y'all knew him, but didn't know he come from that background. That was Donald Trump. He was a baron. When you go and you study what the barons are, barons was low on the totem pole. The baron, how he made his money, he would do anything that the aristocracy wanted to build the world and keep the world functioning and safe. So people like Trump, and the funny thing, he named his son Baron, because he's continuing the tradition, in a sense, that's how they got paid. That's why he could get loans from the banks and do all of that, don't pay his taxes, don't let people know what his finances are and all that kind of stuff, because he got paid by the aristocracy to do his dirty work. And so what I'm saying is he's that same white boy who was on the plantation flirting with the black women and the Indians, and they was all intermarrying and all of that stuff. They took Bacon's Rebellion like it was a focus group. And they said, well, how do we get these people away from each other, especially so we continue to empower ourselves? Then what we do, we separate the white boy and tell the white boy he's in charge now. So now he don't have to pay attention to nobody. But he was also restricted. There were some restrictions, and some restrictions were that they couldn't have relationships with black women and they couldn't marry black women. Prior to that, all of them was marrying each other. So they took care of a lot of business by going into the legislature and doing Bacon's Rebellion with a fine-tooth comb, psychologically, sociologically, financially, the whole 9 yards, so that they could set this white boy up so he could set the record straight. Now white supremacy is taking its place in America. Even though it was there in the behavior of what they call the land grabbers. Because Magellan and the Cortez and all of those were professional land grabbers. That was their job, to go throughout the world, take land from people, which is what they did here. And they didn't ask any permission or anything like that, because our manifest destiny means because I said so. So everything they do is because they say so. So what I'm saying with this Bacon's Rebellion thing, they cured a lot of stuff for themselves. And at that particular point, then the whole reality of chattel slavery went from servitude to chattel slavery. And it went into legislation and created the terminology white man. So then you go back to Plessy versus Ferguson. The finding was that a black man had no rights that a who? That a white man had to respect. This was in the Supreme Court. This is the highest court.
For who?
For them,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it was the highest court.
Because our higher court is creator.
Yeah.
But we ain't taking religion lightly. Today the word slave calls up at the average of black men, black women, sold at the auction in the West Indies. But the slaves were not always Negroes. They lumped them up in a contract, serving. Pretty soon they split up. The vagabond.
They didn't
Back
split.
up.
They didn't make you think like they split up on their own.
Yeah.
They were split up by rich people, rich white people in the world. They split them up.
You know, you can tell that if you listen to where it say the vagabond whites, the unskilled and the shiftless became useless for heavy labor because they made themselves so. Like you said, they say so. And required odd menial jobs away from the fields. The best of the whites became craftsmen that the blacks was already in. Gunsmiths. Like black folks know how to make guns.
The black people don't know gun stores.
No, because we didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Cabinet-
They didn't have the money. You didn't have the correct skin.
Or steel.
Cabinet makers, silversmiths, and so on. The best of blacks is not possible for us to say what the best of blacks might have become, for they had no chance to show it. How cold is that?
Yeah.
Tasha could be Lady Zaza. But if she don't get to tell us to show it, she Lady Doodoo, because they done killed her.
Kill the
Just
image.
using a scenario. Okay, but at the same time, where say you can't tell who the best of blacks might have been, in a warm climate, as Jefferson grimly noted, no man will labor for himself who can make another labor for him.
Free labor.
Hmm.
So you went from being a servant to being free labor.
Yeah. If no man had to be asserted,
It never had to be asserted.
never had to be asserted,
It was
it
universal.
was universally assumed, Tasha. That means all out in the universe. It was assumed that the nigger can do the heavy labor. That's how we built the different countries. Doing the heavy labor, universally assumed that the Negro was the lower species. Look, oh God.
Whom God in his wonderfully mysterious way. That's what they say.
Had endowed with the capacity of unremitting heavy labor. So God made us niggas.
That said the nigga can work all day and all night.
Until they slipped Jesus saying you can work 5 days a week, get Saturday off half a day, and Sunday no go. No go. The Negro was considered by civilized, by civilized men to be exempt from ordinary decencies can be simply inferred from a very precise drawing of a slave ship submitted to the House of Commons. You know they are. Lords of London. In the early 18th century, to prove that the seagoing accommodations for slaves were not only ingenious but humane.
Now, We got to put this caveat in there. All y'all got T-shirts and sweatshirts with that picture of that slave ship on it. This is what they're talking about.
Here, people slept in orderly piles.
In orderly piles.
Orderly piles, Tasha. 2 or 3 men on top of each other. Now you stack Big Prince and Dean on top of each other, and see those somebody stuff be sticking in somebody's boot.
That's
I'm just saying.
That's a lot of
What's so
disorder.
orderly about that? That's so disorderly talk. But listen, hey, in orderly piles, 2 or 3 men, and each of them in an arrangement at once neat and thoughtful, to which
They said it was neat and thoughtful.
it was thoughtful in the palace. As Charles Dickens wrote in another satirical contest, no Christian could possibly object to this.
That was the
Yeah.
Christian world.
Yeah.
What you say?
No, what you say?
Nothing, I just heard something about that recently. It could have been from one of my commentary people that I follow up behind too. So, who knows?
Before the slaves arrived, they had already forfeited their lives to an unidentified owner. When they were shipped to Catholic Brazil, they could hope to work out their freedom by manualism.
Now, Catholic Brazil, you gotta understand what they're actually saying is that the Catholic Church was complicit in the slave trade.
They didn't want to sold the ships to them. A lot of information here, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
With that Fourth Amendment we talk about that raised up the show, Dean said it went from 80 to 90, and all of them people that kept caught on because they're hearing something that makes sense and they want to spread it.
Mm-hmm.
Tune into the show. Have them tune into the show. Come into the show. It's a community show. We invite everybody to come. If you got something to say, only thing is you got to be careful about telling the truth. Because if you lie, you off this show. Michigan. Uh-oh.
Kim wanted to run to the station too.
Oh, here comes the hot pot.
That's what I was thinking. Text it to her.
Did you? That might be her. This is somebody else.
I don't have a number for you.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying.
773-941-5167.
Oh.
That thing behind that light, yeah, I can see
Okay.
it now. No, I can see it now.
All right, you got a call in.
Oh, right, no, right
We
here.
got a caller?
No.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes?
Hey, listen, so this brother Ken, y'all. Hey, how everybody doing?
We okay.
Hello, how
I'm
you
sitting
doing?
back. We watching the show. We having a watch party or whatever. But listen, you had said something. You had read something actually. Uncle read from Alistair Crook's book, and you said that it was universally assumed that the Negro basically could work all day and all night. I wanted to ask y'all, do y'all think that that was assumed because of what we did in Egypt, or what the Hebrews did in Egypt?
Yeah, he was having a history of going into captivity to somebody. It's been
Oh, yeah?
yeah, it's been an interesting stigma because they was in hot to the Egyptians before that, and it's a dubious thing about that Egyptian relationship and all of that because when you talk about the Greeks, when the Greeks talk about their civilization, they say that their civilization started what you call post-flood Noah. So after the flood, Greeks began to, huh?
Talking to the mic.
You said the
Oh, yeah.
civilization started with what?
Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. I was saying that the Greeks marked their history from what you call post-flood Noah. So after the flood in the Bible, the Greeks began to develop themselves. But let me show you the trick to this. Whenever they're talking about the Greeks in history, they also talk about the Romans, right? They say the Greeks, the Romans, right? Well, there was a comedy, what they call a comedy of sovereigns between the Greeks and the Romans. But literally, at one point, they was from the same family. So the problem that we have is that the Egyptian captivity, the new Egyptian captivity exists now because we're still under the power of the Greeks and the Romans. The problem is the people didn't know what the word Roman meant. The word Roman means German.
Wow.
So it was a relationship with the intellect of what they call the Greeks, who were just a little more intelligent than the Romans, you understand? But they were all from the Germanic extraction, which Trump and most of the presidents of the United States fall under that category, including Barack Obama. So that
and you know that also relates to Ken when he was showing us how kindergarten is a German word.
that's right.
That's how we have the German school system.
Oh, kindergarten is a German word.
It's a German word. Kinder means the garden. Kindergarten means the garden of children. What it implies is that children are treated like plants.
Wow.
So you nurse the plant, water the plant, the plant gets to depend on you, and then at some particular point, the plant becomes of service to you. So kindergarten was to develop young people at an age around 5 years old, where they would be trained to serve the system. Now, what happened after that, they looked at it and they said, well, that's not enough. We need to get the children as early as 3 years old. And they came up with this concept called Head Start. So and Head Start literally means what you think Head Start means. It means getting a jump on 5 years old. So now instead of you giving your children over to the devil at 5 years old, now they can get them at 3.
Get them at a tray. Well, that's why in New York, Ken, they teach 2 mommies and 2 daddies in New York. And then you got to understand, Ken, when we learned from Harold that the Germans don't let nobody come in their country to fix nothing because all you need is an 8th grade education. Arithmetic, English, and math. I mean, arithmetic, English, and science.
And they don't really want you to be that scientific.
At 8th grade, Ken, that's all the schooling you have to have in Germany. And they fix everything in Germany, and they don't let no outsiders come in to fix nothing.
But that's not just in New York, that's everywhere now. California
It's
is
everywhere.
here. Now they finna start teaching your kids in 3rd grade, what they call it, pronouns, or what to call the teachers, and about we didn't learn sex education until 9th grade. Why?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Do anal sex,
really?
all of that other stuff.
Yeah. And then they had an anal sex class at Harvard, one of the super colleges, going in the back door.
That's what Michelle Obama graduated from.
Oh,
Barack Obama.
And what you got to understand about kindergarten is never over. You can go and get a PhD and you're still under kindergarten. You're still under Germanic, the Germanic construct. Now, all of the schools, basically all of them, especially the schools of higher learning, they're what you call Jesuit schools.
what's a Jesuit?
Jesuit is a person employed, and they implied that it's a priest or something like that. It could be anybody.
I just wanted them to know.
Employed by the Catholic Church to do its dirty work, like the barons.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
Jesuit is really a play on
Word.
Jew,
Yeah.
right? Jewish, and all of that. So what you have is a situation where, I keep saying this, and people keep looking at me cross-eyed because they don't really understand what I'm saying. We do not live in what you call the United States. We live in Germany. And if you go back to German history, everything that Hitler did, all of this stuff is happening right now. What's the difference in gassing somebody and shooting a black man in the head, in the back? So what's the difference?
Ain't no difference.
The object is that you killable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You understand? So
I'm going to keep on teaching. I'm going to keep on watching. It's good to see you online, Tasha. Your crown looks beautiful.
Thank
I see
you.
you're doing a great job. I'm going to keep watching y'all.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you, sir. But let me let you know we're a little jealous here at the show, man. I want it all the way around. I don't ain't about no time. I might not get another call through Ken. That's just a joke, y'all.
So something else, you know what, since you just said that, friend, I just seen something recently where it was on a documentary I think I came across, because I watch a lot of commentary, people that I follow on YouTube or that I became aware of, as well as documentaries. And before the Great Fire in Chicago, the fire in Chicago, the architecture was German.
Absolutely.
Before, yes.
Yes.
The architecture
Yes.
in Chicago was
Yes.
German before the fire. And then they knocked the rest of it down and rebuilt. You can look for it and
Hey, Dave, maybe we might better let Tasha talk.
I'm telling you,
She
man.
got that one past me. I didn't know that.
We're
You
aware.
was supposed to tell me before I walked into that.
Sorry, well, I'm
Hey,
sorry.
hey.
Hello.
Yeah. It was, and it was just before the fire when they had the World's Fair down at the pier.
Yeah.
And one of the controversial things that was taking place in a bunch of these world fairs, they was bringing pygmies from Africa and putting them in cages
I did see that.
and
too.
displaying
Do
them.
you know they don't go to doctors? God gave him the intelligence to heal everything from what you grow out the ground.
I mean, we wouldn't have had to neither if the bankers didn't take over medicine
That's
and
right. That's
co-opt it and then basically make
That's
herbal
right.
medicine and holistic medicine the
Against-
original treatment,
against the
a
law.
secondary, and made pharmaceutical drugs first
Levante,
and first class.
Mhm.
come on in so they
I
can
wanted to
see.
give y'all a little caveat there. It's funny because one of the most racist places, and y'all celebrate their holiday every year, was the Irish. The Irish, everything that black people complain about in America is what black people complain about in Ireland. Now the thing about Ireland was populated by what you call pygmies. People
Yeah,
don't know that.
I did.
Very short people.
Yeah.
And the white people went in there and took the place over, and they marginalized what they call little people today. That was the substance of leprechauns and all that
I
kind
said
of
that
stuff.
too.
Oh,
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right, the leprechaun. Yeah. When he get to talking, it's just because I feel recall some stuff. But yeah, I do. I seen that too, where how the leprechaun, I guess in Ireland, supposed to have got its name was from to do with the Pygmy people. Yeah, I did
That's
see
right.
that too.
That's right. That's right. So that institutional racism, you know what I'm saying, was ubiquitous. It was all over the world, man. Look,
You said it
Wait.
was.
I'm saying the action
Oh,
was
you
taking
said-
place all
oh,
over the
okay.
world. The Magellan, I go back to Magellan, the Carters, Columbus, it's thousands of explorers that they just dispersed throughout the whole planet. Their job was to go, rob, pillage, kill, do whatever, but come back with the spoils and come back
What I
being
call
in
on,
control of the
Yeah.
land.
Yeah.
Dean, put our caller on, man. Put our caller on. I'm
They just
glad.
wanted to tune into the discussion.
It
They want to know what the discussion was. So, hey, caller.
enlightens Tasha when you say things which I already know she had a knowledge. She do read and study more than I do. She don't like to come out and talk about it because some days she feel like this, some days she feel like that. But in a heated conversation of knowledge, she can chime in on a lot of things. Like I missed the architectural drawing, the German drawing of the city, the Chicago fire. She was supposed to share that with me before she got to the show. But I ain't, I don't know. Rogers,
I ain't know what to talk.
you understand me? See that? Yeah, that's I know how to get it going.
It depends on the topic.
Yeah.
But something else I wanted to come back to you with too, friends, you was just talking about, they also did that, what you was talking about before we started talking about the picnic people. They did that in Reconstruction too, with the divide.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that either. And I got
They
that
did that.
from the new Jim Crow by Michelle
Right. By the
Alexander.
sister, yeah.
Like we
yeah.
live in a caste system. They just keep changing the titles and the names, but everything
That's
still remains
what
the
they
same.
do.
Again, yeah.
They
But
changed.
Now I'm not as intelligent
I
and
had a
sharp as
friend.
you and my daughter, but let me say this. You know why I get from that? Remember the St. Valentine's Day massacre I'm always talking about? The narrator said at the beginning of the movie, some of the faces gonna change and some of the names. But the game is what you just said and what in the analytical part what you were talking about, what you and Prince talking about.
crossing what I'm saying, but it's the same thing.
But the thing is, we need to teach our people that when the systems change, how to identify it.
How to
Don't think
identify
that
it,
something
right.
like they do the swap and trick. It's the swap and change.
Your millennial,
Nothing's changed.
your millennial friend want to run for mayor at 21 years old. I'm just saying, Mayor, it's, you was running buddy.
Nah, he can definitely have that field, that area. I'm okay with politics. It's not
No, I'm talking about you could change the blueprint because you said we should teach the other ones how to identify the process, and I think that's a highly
Yeah, you're right. We need to be able to
That's all I'm
identify what
saying.
we doing,
I'm
what we
getting-
looking
Okay,
at.
but let
what
me
it's
tell
showing.
y'all today. I've been talking for years about the new Indigo University, which is the root of all this information that we bring to the table. It's under the guise of the new Indigo University. I will be opening up that university in about the next 4 days. The next 4 months. It's going to be located in Hyde Park at a designated area that I will reveal later on.
Okay.
But this subject matter, all the stuff that we've been talking about for the 104 shows, you know what I'm saying? These are the things that we teach. The idea is to help you conceptualize the world in which you live in that you have no idea of. You think that the Ukraine-Russian conflagration
Uh-oh.
is something separate from you in your neighborhood. You understand? I used to tell people all the time, don't be surprised you wake up one day and Russians, Germans are already here.
Right.
But you know, Putin hates the Germans because they're Nazis, and he calls them Nazis.
And you're Muslim.
I say you wake up one day and there's Russian soldiers in your backyard. Now, Ukraine never thought that could happen to them. But all the African nations thought that they was all right until the European came up in there, you understand, and slaughtered them and brought them into submission to this very day. And if a white man isn't in Africa, the African country pulling strings, he's just not there in the present pulling strings. He done already created the environment that he have enough Africans to pull his strings for him. And that's the reality of the world we live in.
You know something that makes sense to me is that when Mandela got out, he was a puppet, and Wendy was with the gorillas.
So now let me get you for a second. It's funny you brought up Mandela. So you said I was supposed to told you about the architect of Chicago before we got on the show. So my question to you is, and to Prince, because I think I remember seeing it once before, but I can't recall. I caught the end of it. Stephen Biko.
Stephen Biko, yeah.
Biko.
Mhm.
Yeah, like the same thing they've been doing over here. It's in Africa, it's everywhere. But no, but I'm saying I never heard, like when I say Stephen Biko, they think I'm talking about Jerry Springer security guard. No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Stephen Biko.
And when I did it recently, because Denzel played in another movie just as powerful as like Malcolm, called Cry Freedom.
Yes.
And it's based off of Stephen Biko's life and how they
Biko.
murdered him, Biko,
Yeah.
murdered him, and he was on his way to Cape
K-Town.
K-Town. He knew it was dangerous, and they beat him to death.
Yeah.
And then said that he went on a hunger strike and basically killed himself.
Now, but let me tell you
I
what,
can't say.
let me tell you what the real question is, and people hate this question.
Mm.
How do they kill Stephen Biko and don't kill Mandela?
I don't hate that question. That makes you think, question everything. But I'm asking y'all too. I've never heard y'all talk. This is somebody else, even though he's not over here. Over there, he was an activist doing the same things that we hung and killed and lynched for every day.
That's right.
Why? Again, teaching the youth, teaching him,
Teach me.
my son. Like you knew, you ain't never heard him.
No, not really.
No,
No.
Stephen-
So you know about
Stephen-
him. First. Okay, well,
Stephen
look
Biko
then.
was the real guy.
Right.
That's why I asked the question.
But
How
I'm
they
not,
kill
it don't offend
Biko
me.
and don't kill Mandela.
Absolutely.
Now let me tell you why they didn't kill Mandela. Mandela was trained by the Israeli Mossad in Ethiopia.
They
You
gonna
know what
shadow
the Israeli
me, y'all.
Mossad
I'm gonna
is?
say, keep talking. Y'all gonna get
You
shadow
know,
me
you
invested
know
with me.
what the Israeli Mossad is?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's
you
the
know,
equivalent of the
that's
CIA.
what's cutting Emmanuel's finger.
The Mossad is the most dangerous group on the planet.
They said what I just they call his name, Emmanuel's father rode in the plane with his mother and father. They dropped bombs on villages with babies in
And
it.
they was back there with Emmanuel's family was back there with Menachem Begin and Golda Meir and all of them. He was a terrorist,
I never heard his name until.
but he was German. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like Ray Kroc from McDonald's, like Ford who created the Model T, like the Hunt's family, Ketchup, like the Heinz family, the Disney family, Walt Disney, all of that.
Them 9
If you look around, even in Chicago, if you pay attention to the signs, you'll see the German presence in the signs. Like the word Stapleton. You know, they got them on the hot seat now because they was duping black people over at the Stapleton car dealership. Is it called Stapleton? It's called Stapleton. Yeah.
It's in the suburbs.
All of them, this whole construct is German. This is what I keep trying to tell everybody. We got our heads in the sand, so we don't know the game that's been perpetrated. You understand what I'm saying?
But we never gonna know it though, Prince. I'm saying even for y'all, like I get like every day the show has topics, but in I'm just gonna make a suggestion. In those topics, you have to start working in something on y'all show that teaches the people how to
On
identify
our show.
how to identify the things when they change.
Uh-huh.
We so tricked distracted easily. When something we thinking is better, it's not. It's the same thing, just redressed up. We have to teach them. I only know because of him and who my lineage go back to. But everybody ain't so lucky to have somebody that's grassrooted, or to even have the presence of y'all. You have to start teaching them.
It's called
Hold on. I just gotta help you with one thing.
Go ahead.
When you talk to somebody like me and say you have to start, baby, I've been doing that for 60 years. Hold on.
Okay.
We taught a lot of people. That's why they got up and said, okay, no mas. We're not doing this no more. When are we going? Wherever we got to go. And we had thousands and thousands of people. I used to teach at Howard University. I teach stuff all day, all night. That's how we got the victory, because like the enemy studied us, we studied him.
That's another thing. Nobody teaches to study people how they study us.
Right.
I don't hear it. I don't see it. This is the new way. This is the new form right here. You ain't got, even if you wanted to go out there and march, you can reach a lot of people through these platforms until they decide to do whatever they gonna do, which is almost every other day.
Yeah, we
But-
let me say this, because she brought that up. When Martin Luther King passed, he said two things. Before he passed, he said two things. He said one was that integration and all that stuff was a burning house. The second thing he said was that he would no longer say that violence should not be a part of the revolution. So here's Mr. Peace, who stands up and says, I was wrong. In that direction, I was taking everybody. But he at least had the integrity to say it.
Yes.
You understand? So
Admittance is the first step to recovery.
yeah. So what I'm saying is, all of these people, we studied all of these people. That's you want to ask me about Africa and South Africa and the leaders in South Africa. You understand? I got a video that I can send you where we brought Winnie Mandela to Israel, and at the end of her tour of our community, she said, "This should be the new Mecca for Africa." I got it on tape. So what I'm saying is that some of us surrounded ourselves with intelligent people from all over the world so that we can speak from a point of power. And though we may have different subjects or whatever, and you may be in an environment with us and assume that we ain't said nothing, we ain't covered everything. But we covered it enough to get the victory that had eluded all black people for the last 400 years. Because it's 460 years now, because we've been out, we was talking about 400 years, 60 years ago. And most people don't know that. So
we've been out to lunch, in other words.
So what I'm saying is, the other thing, Tasha, that we decided to do, and we're going to talk to you and get your wisdom on it, is that we're gonna take this show on the road. There was a guy, I keep trying to remember his name. He had a radio show that he used to travel all around the country. He played funk music and all of that. And then they interviewed artists, they had talks and little lectures or whatever. The black guy that had the show.
T-Mobile had a friend that travels with the mic. I don't know his name, but that's easy for me to get. So I know what you're talking about. And that mobile information might be even better. And we got to construct some things even better where they can't bother us for telling the truth. I wanted people to see Levante because he's a diehard soldier. I wasn't just shaking his hand because he used to take me and Harold to different parts of the country.
Yeah.
I shook his hand because he's a diehard person. He comes all the time. He didn't know Tosh was going to be here.
Mhm.
He might not know he's going to be here. So,
Mhm.
you know, I'm just saying, give the kudos to the people while they living. I don't want to give him roses when he dead.
Mm-mm. We don't
Did
do
she
that.
hang up? Oh, she called me.
That's
why.
why-
I went to the call because I know she said she wanted to know what we was talking about, but I never heard the question answered, and then it's kind of like I
See
didn't hear
that?
her.
Oh, okay.
She did. She wanted to know what the topic was, I guess, but because she wasn't listening.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, you
Girl
said
told
that.
me. Girl told me this. We was riding in a car. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Remember that little man at the end of the y'all were talking about the little people.
Yeah,
He said, remember the man at the end of the Wizard of Oz?
yeah,
They all over the world. They took over. They all midgets. He put me up on game. They
yeah.
all midgets.
That's
Oh,
what
absolutely.
Washington said.
Well,
Yeah, and
now,
she
you know, I'm
said,
gonna tell you when you really
wow.
find that out
I didn't
is when
know.
you go
The girl
to
told me.
LA. I lived in LA for 8 years. The architecture is for little teeny people.
Girl told me.
You talking about James Cagney? Do you know?
That's what I was.
Oh.
James Cagney,
Yeah,
Humphrey
James Cagney.
Bogart,
Yeah.
Edward G. Robinson,
all the way-
Marlon Ladd. They used to shoot his
Oh.
camera shots up from off the ground.
Yeah, to make them look tall. What's the guy's name? He's married to the woman that had the breast removed. She played Tomb Raider or something. Not
You
Tomb
talking about
Raider.
Angelina Jolie?
Angelina Jolie. I was in the room with them. They come up to your neck.
Huh? And
That's how short they are. Her and her husband. I was in the room with them. All these shorties. Look, Jamie Foxx ain't no tall guy.
I know. Tyson either.
I'm trying to tell you, it's a short man's game. That's why they had the thing called the Napoleon syndrome.
That's right.
Because Napoleon was a little short, nasty, hateful guy. And then they made the song that said, "With short people ain't got nobody." You remember that song?
Yeah.
They got little teeny hands and little teeny feet.
They go beat, beat, beat. Yeah, I know the short song.
Yeah,
Thank
because
you, Dean. Well, I would like y'all to tune back in on Thursday because we know we go over
yeah,
sometime.
we gone somewhere.
Yeah, because you and Tasha finna go to another chapter. But listen, we want y'all to understand. Thank you for tuning in to the Big Payback. We love you. Just like we love Levante. Whatever he show up or come. He'll be here next Thursday or this Thursday or something. He got some showtime coming. Well, y'all know how we go out. You pay the cost to be the boss. 1,
1, 2,